My name is Keats Ross, and on this very special episode, Gabriel Hart returns, but this time with a vengeance. He's now a published author. You're listening to PRAGMAGICK. It was just last August when we featured Gabriel Hart on episode 6 of this nascent, baby-faced podcast. Well, now in the first time in PRAGMAGICK's entire history of the show, we have our first sequel. If you remember him in episode 6, we were talking about his recent chapbooks that he was self-publishing and his work in jail weddings, of which I wrote an extensive review on Nothing to See Here, the last novelette that he put out. I recommend returning to that episode, maybe even before you listen to this one, because what a fucking great cosmic payoff this turned out to be. So now, Gabriel Hart returns to PRAGMAGICK as a published author. But that's not even the most synchronous of events here. It turns out that his appearance on the PRAGMAGICK podcast, episode 6, might have introduced him to his would-be publisher. And in these short, less than 6 months, Gabriel Hart finally published his twin novels. The twin novels that took him 10 years to get out and into the world the way he wanted them to be. So it is with the most excitement that we have Gabriel Hart back on PRAGMAGICK to talk about that process and what the fuck it's like being a published author now. So, in this episode, Slither Hither Weirdos and Witches, Gabriel Hart strikes back. Well, I think if we wanted to just jump right into it, I think a great place to pick up is where we left off last time. Which
I think that's definitely in order.
It's funny because it's a little too linear. Because you were talking about how you were having some publishing issues with the novel that has just been published. Am I correct?
Yeah. So when did we talk last? Was that August?
Oh God, yeah. It was a short time ago in the publishing world, I'm sure. It was a few months.
We'll call it August, and it's almost too soon for me to return to the same podcast, but I think it's kind of a neat story, and it kind of
I think it's perfect.
Yeah. So but when you were talking to me, I had just gotten this book, my novel that just came out this week, Virgins in Reverse, and the Intrusion, two novellas sort of intertwined in novel form. I had been working on this book, or rather I had worked on the book for basically the whole process from inception to I guess we'll say last August when you were talking to me, it was almost 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I went through this whole I could easily write another book on what it took to get this thing out.
Right.
It would make your head spin, and it had all sorts of art imitating life, and just, you know, all these indications that the book was cursed, and all these just opposing, supportive and opposing forces that just, I mean, yeah, would make your head spin. But yeah, and I like went through all this complete chaos just to get, it was slated to come out from a pretty major publisher, and yeah, like I was almost to the finish line, and I ended up getting dropped about a month before it was scheduled to be released. Now,
are you allowed to talk about why at all, or?
We'll just say I don't want to go. I made kind of a mistake, you know, that I had, that has a lot more to do with me being a Luddite with the internet than me being some kind of asshole.
Sure.
But it was a very green mistake I made. So yeah, I ended up getting dropped. But and so yeah, you kind of caught me at a real dark period. I don't know if, because I was really beating myself up over it pretty bad.
I remember it was
like,
just
imagine 10 years, and then just like right when you're at the finish line, just like, you know, like you trip on a rock, you know.
Yeah,
basically.
I can't imagine. I mean, I can to a degree, since, you know, that it's such as the artist's way, but to have something pulled out right from under you right before the finish line.
Yeah.
And
so yeah, it was funny talking to you last August on your podcast. Like, it ended up being very, almost like a therapy session, because I realized how bad I needed to talk to someone like that, my outer circle, you know?
Yeah, totally.
About this whole thing. So it was really good timing. And like, I hate to, you know, I think it's silly to go through life thinking like, oh, you never know who's in the audience, you never know who's listening, you know, because that's just a silly motive, you know. But yeah, it was crazy, you know. This publisher from Joshua Tree up here was actually listening to that podcast, and they reached out to me. This publisher called Traveling Shoes. I had known of them, but I had never really, I don't know, I had never really considered approaching them. But they were listening to the podcast, and they heard the episode, and they reached out to me, and we had a meeting within 2 days, and within those 2 days they had like the cover done already. And
that's
like,
so cool.
it was slated to go. From then it just moved very fast. So yeah, I'd like to think if the book was truly cursed and doomed and stuff, it wouldn't have withstood all that comet trail of chaos that it was leaving behind it.
Yeah, well, I totally understood why. I mean, from reading the book, like, it deserved the publishing. It's a great, real fun and harrowing kind of look. And I relate a lot to it. I think more so in my wilderness years, as I call them, you know? And but
exactly.
It's just funny to me how quick that turnaround was, because I'm not too privy with the publishing world. Like, I assume that it takes, you know, months to, you know, edit and to design and to do all that stuff, but to have it turn around that quick for you was just such a monumental, awesome. You know?
I mean, that kind of dumb luck. I mean, it's dumb luck, but it's also, I stand behind the book, obviously, and I think it was intriguing for a publisher to hear me maybe talk about it, and kind of freshly abandoned or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that kind of thing doesn't really happen to anybody, and it shouldn't have really happened to me. But yeah, it just kind of goes to show, like, you never know, you know, don't kill yourself,
right?
Because you never know what tomorrow will bring.
No, totally. Yeah, that lottery ticket was the winning one. Yeah. But I had a lot of, I mean, it was cool. I had a lot of cool things. Well, I'm sorry. Were you going to say something? Oh, no, go ahead, please.
I mean, I took it really, really, the whole thing really hard before Traveling Shoes stepped in, just because, it just seemed like the most cosmic joke,
Do you find
of
that
all time.
you're going to have, like, obviously it's probably an altogether better publisher that's not going to, be the type to scurry away, The
relief about it is that it's a small publisher that's just kind of getting going, and they're humble and hungry, and the head of it, the John Christopher, who runs it with his wife Tanya, he's a really amazing writer too. So it's writer run, and I feel way more. I think for a first book, you should always go with something smaller, because you're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah.
Like don't kid yourself into thinking that you're not gonna make some super silly mistakes like I did. So
Totally.
it's the fact that it's a lot more low pressure, and we're kind of all growing together. It makes it. That's sort of the way I like to work with people anyway.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask how the Tab Falco of Panther Birds connection, how did that come about?
Oh, see, that was such a godsend. So yeah, Tab was like, kind of one of my, I hate using the word hero or idols, but he's one of my favorite artists of all time. I mean, I think a lot of people only think he's a musician, but he's a complete auteur. He's a filmmaker. He's a dancer. I mean, he's classically trained in tango, and he's a writer himself. I mean, he kind of just does it all.
Yeah, the forward is like worth the ticket price alone sometimes.
Yeah, that's kind of what
it really sets the stage for like an amazing piece of work after. It like services the book so well.
Yeah, I agree, and I appreciate hearing that too. But yeah, Tab and I met because I write for LA Record, the kind of in my opinion, like the best LA music publication run by Chris Ziegler and Christina Benson. But yeah, I guess it was like 2011. They gave me an assignment to interview him over Skype, and a simple interview turned into, I think a 4-hour conversation, and it was one of the most fascinating conversations I've ever had with anyone in my life, and it really blew the doors open with my perception of who Tab Falco was, and it was kind of dare I say, it was a mind altering discussion I had with him,
Very cool.
And we kind of became very fast friends, I guess, from that moment, and then Panther Burns came to LA, and we ended up opening Jail Weddings, ended up opening for him, and he was really impressed, and he kind of through the years, he kind of demanded that whatever band I had going, whether it was Jail Weddings or the Fourth Wall or whatever, would open for him, and we just came close, mutual admirers, I guess.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And I didn't really, for some reason, that was the weirdest thing when you're about ready to have your first book come out, and you have to, call on all these favors all of a sudden. For some reason, I didn't think of Tab until sometimes it takes those times to realize all the cool people,
Yeah.
And that was one of those things. And I didn't even expect Tab to say yes, but he was really enthusiastic about it. And he read the book, I think 30 hours behind sleep. And, he delivered the foreword just immediately after reading it. So his input after reading it gave me a lot of confidence at a time where I just thought the book was totally doomed. So I think, getting that forward from Tab really gave me a lot of, a lot of hope, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's just like perfectly, encapsulates it in like a page and a half too. I think it's not even a very long forward, if I remember correctly, but it's like, it sets to this scene, like it's.
And Tab, and the crazy thing was Tab, the two stories, they're standalone stories, but they they're kind of intertwined with the same characters, and you find one kind of uncovers the mystery of the other, and Tav was making connections between the two stories that I would have never even thought of. I mean, he was bringing all this crazy, classic mythology into it, and etymology, the people's names, what they meant, and stuff I just would have never thought about. So that was really great to see another layer of intrigue be put on the book like that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the editing process and about how these stories are tethered. Like, why twin novels and not just one single narrative? And like, I think it's a great idea. How did you kind of come to that these were
Well,
two...
It was crazy. I mean, I didn't mean for there to be two of them. I wrote The Intrusion first.
Mm-hmm.
I started writing it back in 2008, I guess.
Wow.
And I'd always kind of, I would have a problem blacking out when I was growing up. And everyone would always call me Zombie Gabe when I would kind of turn into that sort of disembodied entity, and I started doing that. I had some really kind of profound experiences with it, and there was this one night where all my friends, when we were in our late teens, just swore that something had just gotten a hold of me, and I was like, showing this sort of nonsensical strength and throwing people across the room and all this stuff. So yeah, it kind of got in my head, like there's this there has to be something there. So I actually was doing, beyond my own hard knock real life experience I actually went down to the LA Public Library. I started reading tons of books, and there was never, I couldn't find one book either in the libraries or even the internet that talked about the correlation between alcoholic blackouts and spirit possession. And I was aware that it was a complete pseudoscience, but I thought it was a really neat thing to explore.
Yeah, I believe.
And yeah, that list I made in the beginning of Intrusion, there's like 22 symptoms of spirit possession and alcoholic blackouts, and they're all exactly the same.
Yeah, so it's amazing. I
thought it gave the sort of theory some backbone. But so I wrote that, and that was supposed to be, the standalone story, and then I actually released it. It came out for 3 days. I just self-published it. Uh-huh. And this guy, do I even want to mention his name? I'll withhold his name. But okay. This guy kind of came into my life, and he's all like, "Hey, take your book off, Lulu. Let me edit it. I think I can get you a publishing deal. In fact, I'm sure I can get you a publishing deal."
Wow.
And he started editing it, and his girlfriend at the time was a big Jail Weddings fan, so that was the connection there. And then all of a sudden I didn't hear from him, and I'm all, great, like so Los Angeles, just these flakes. And it turns out this guy's stepdad murdered his mother, and it just took the whole trajectory of this guy who we started kind of forging a really close friendship from this. It just took the trajectory into this insane, other path.
You should write a book about the genesis of this.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy what this book has gone through. So I'm kind of digressing a little bit. But he was the liaison for that original publisher. And
okay.
yeah, it was just a crazy. He was kind of like I would compare him. He was a really brilliant writer. I would call him a genius, but diabolical in another way. Like I would compare him. Well, what's the guy's name? The lawyer guy from Fear and Loathing. What's the guy's name? Like his.
Yeah, the Benicio del Toro in the movie, and the he's kind of like that kind of guy to me. It'll come to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the intrusion was basically got completely muddled in this whole weird murder legal thing while my editor was just trying to get out of his whole grieving process. And I was just trying to be a good friend and just let it go. And so while that was going on with the intrusion, I started writing Virgins in Reverse just to stay busy, you know?
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because Virgins in Reverse started, I was really just writing a very dear ex-girlfriend of mine. I was writing her, not a love letter, but just like, I was trying to just write her a sweet, sort of nostalgic, remember this kind of thing, you know, just I guess it was a love letter, but not in any kind of way to like win her back or anything. And I kept writing and I'm writing and writing. And I'm just all, oh God, okay, this is I guess this is how I really feel, you know, and it's, I guess the best way I could describe the way I write is, you know, a lot of it is based on, you know, a lot of it could be considered memoirish, but I think the whole speculative fiction part comes in when I kind of feel that, you know, imagine like the complexity of emotion, right? And then imagine the non-complexity of the English language.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of, the English language could be very reductive.
Yeah, totally.
And as opposed to other romantic languages, you know?
Yeah.
So I find this need to kind of spin the book when it starts getting hard to like convey emotions that's based on like real life. I have to spin it into a complete absurd, kind of symbolic, heavily allegorical kind of
folklore.
Tailspin.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, like, you know, like sort of, you know how when you have a conversation with someone, you kind of run out of words and you're like, well, see, it's kind of like when you do this and this, you know.
Exactly.
It's that in a way, that's kind of the way I write, but I try to make it, you know, in a somewhat linear narrative.
Well, that's amazing because you had just, you had mentioned that this was kind of biographical in the sense that it started as nostalgic writing for this ex you had. And there is a passage in here, and it's in Virgins in Reverse, that like kind of stung me at the same time. It really encapsulated kind of that time in my life being forlorn, alcohol drenched, you know, aimless, and mixed up in city life with, you know, fellow aimless alcohol, you know, drunks and women. And it starts off with,
it's funny how relatable that is. I'm finding that is with people, men and women, you know.
It's this passage right here. It goes, I picked up right where I left off before that holy woman had entered my life, making no distinction between my apartment and the street, between moments of pissing intoxication and ones of revelatory clarity, morphing the meanings of safe and sorry into a single naked display of blind adventure that turned every distant monster into a close comrade, whose names I would never remember. I love that. That's like, that is, it perfectly surmise, like it gives that whim and wonder and romance to those otherwise like pretty torrid and dark times. I think that, you know, we look back on as very much as separate from our, you know, trajectory now, because it's so antithetical to like the prosperity and the health that, you know, we kind of seek now in a way. And
Right.
there's something just so elemental and American about, that aimlessness, that like barroom philosopher in a way, where you're like in a sea of people just kind of working to drink and drinking to fuck and fucking to work, and it's like this never ending burrows.
The whole loneliness in a crowd trope or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's totally, that never gets old, because that really is the human condition,
Yeah, I would say
we're all completely alone, whether we're surrounded by people or not.
So how was it like mining that feeling, being in the place where you are now, like in the station you are in life right now, but having to kind of comb and mine those feelings and those moments? Like, did you have to ground yourself afterwards? Did it feel like a relief? Was it disturbing?
It was sort of. I didn't. Again, it was sort of art imitating life in the sense that I, as someone that used to have a problem blacking out,
right,
drunk a lot, there came to a point where I'm just like, fuck, I don't remember I don't remember large portions of my life, and so it was almost an exercise to try to just make the memory,
connect the dots.
Prove that I still had a memory of my life.
Yeah.
So that was really the only exercise, really. I didn't quite know what I was writing until it was done.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew what I wanted it to be, but I didn't. You mentioned romance and stuff, and I think I kind of thought about this the other day when I was writing what I'm currently working on. I think a lot of what I write is romantic in the sense that, like, I mean, what is romance? Romance is basically making something bigger than what it actually is.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you look back on something, it's gonna have a romance to it, and it's not as and romance is almost the antithesis to accuracy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's hard to be. I find it hard to be romantic in the moment. I find it hard to be romantic in real time. So I think the fact that you said a lot of this is coming across as romantic is because that's just the way. I just think that's the way people remember things.
Sure, yeah, and maybe it's the way I choose to remember a similar time in my life because of where I am now, having not. I wouldn't say like well, I guess, maybe it persevered that kind of time. And so, I can't help but think of it as something on the way to whatever it is I'm doing now. But there is a way that you write that's like very visceral as far as those kind of like, I don't know, absurd but insane emotions in the moment of things. And especially within the relationship, within the movie theater employees, it's like the small moments in this story interpersonally between people that like hits or resonates, I think, more for me.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to even be poetic about those moments. I was just trying to remember as many minute details as possible. And I do maintain that these books are fiction.
Yeah, of course.
But I was just trying to remember, large memories and just minute details. And sometimes you have to pull some $10 words out of nowhere just to describe them accurately. And, whether it comes out poetic or not, that's right. That's, I guess, up to the reader. But
I wouldn't say it doesn't come across as like trying at all. I just, as someone that like is, reading through it and picking up, those are the things that resonate or those, those small moments that resonate with me personally. But it definitely doesn't sound like you're, it's almost like a disregard to embellish at points too, which I find really relieving in certain areas where there are certain times where it probably would, warrant some sort of poetic resolve or something. And there's almost a big middle finger to that when that happens every now and again.
I think I kind of see what you're saying. Like the reception from the book's been really interesting. It's been really, I can luckily say it's kind of exceeded my expectations, but with the funny thing, the funny thing that keeps, and this seems to always happen to me, where I'll be, real serious, right, working on something, and just like, real, just, getting to this really dark place where I'm just exorcising demons and all this stuff, and I don't want, and then I'll read it, I'll read it to someone, and I'll hear myself say it, and whoever I'm reading it to will be laughing.
Yeah.
Like, and I won't realize what I'm writing is actually has a lot of comic relief to it until I either read it to someone or I hear someone else read it to me. And I think that's fascinating. Like before I moved away from LA, I was going to comedy shows all the time. And I was just really fascinated with comedians and just their sort of inherent darkness and stuff. And I think when, not that I'm any kind of comedian or even influenced by that, but yeah, there's dark comedy or black comedy or however you're going to communicate it.
Uh-huh.
I think when you're so matter of fact about a point you're making, it ends up being funny and anti poetry in a way, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Like I think the comedy comes from just like you blurting something out very matter of fact, and I guess sort of
it's like a confidence.
It's almost like it's like, I guess that's where the comedy comes in, because it's almost the audacity to tell it how it is.
Exactly.
rather than use flowery language to it,
Yeah, absolutely. Do you consider this in like cinema life, your novelettes and whatnot? Is this a big universe? Do they all exist? Or can they? They can, I think.
Yeah. I think I mentioned something about that last time we were talking, and it was a new discovery,
right,
to me. It's completely unintended, but I think that subconscious works in really funny ways like that.
Yeah.
Well, another kind of interesting thing happened this week. John Paul, my editor, the guy, my friend that edited Virgins in Reverse and The Intrusion, and he also runs Space Cowboy that released my chapbooks. He assigned me to write a sci-fi story for his podcast.
Oh, that's right.
And I didn't. So I started jamming on this ridiculous sci-fi story, and I didn't realize I kind of put a sort of scientific theory in this story, and I didn't realize until I was halfway done that a lot of that theory comes from the last line of Virgins in Reverse, where it says, oh shit, hold on, give me a second.
So let's
the stars in the Milky Way in the sky.
The Milky Way
being
smeared
discarded
across the heavens, like discarded jism,
like
dodging the bullet,
yeah,
penetrating sting of impregnation of a new life, unwanted, unwarranted. Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't realize until I was halfway done with this other story that this other pseudo-scientific theory that I'm writing about in the sci-fi story is basically, that last line is basically the crux of what I'm working on now.
Oh,
so yeah, it's none of it's intended, but yeah, I think that the subconscious is the boss, and you can't really
Yeah.
you have no control over the universe that it's going to create.
Yeah, I guess, and two, I was really wondering if it was intentional, but to hear it's not is, I think, motivating for me personally, because I can't help but find all those tethers and get really like obsessed about how they're all connecting, but at the same time I need to like not fucking focus on that or try to
yeah,
like
it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of not your job to do that. Your job is just to make it happen.
Yeah.
You don't want to. You want to let the mind work like a dream like that, and you don't want to. I know it's tough for us, to want to make sense out of everything, but you also kind of want to keep the more rigid I think you make your subconscious into making sense out of everything, the less it's going to give you those little Easter eggs or whatever you'd call them.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the promotional tour going to look like for this? Because it's properly released, but you're going to have the book released tomorrow, or sorry, Wednesday.
Wednesday at Stories Books in Echo Park. And John Paul's going to be coming down.
I'm sorry, and that's
from the desert with me for that. He just released Wednesday the 16th.
16th, gotcha.
John Paul just released a book of science fiction poetry, which is really great, and like it's a whole world of that I think a lot of people don't even know exists. So
that's awesome.
Hopefully he'll spread some awareness about that. And then Tony Duchesne, who wrote Confessions of a Teenage Jesus Jerk, which they made into a movie, he's going to be reading. And then our friend Adam Mars will be reading as well. So yeah, that should be good. And then I think we're gonna have the reading up here in the desert at John Paul's shop on the 26th, and that'll be with my favorite poet of all time, my friend John Tottenham. I don't know if you're familiar, but you definitely need to check him out. He just released a new book.
How do you write this?
He just released a new book called, what's that?
How do you spell his last name?
Tottenham. It's Tottenham.
Cool.
Tottenham. Yeah, he just released a new book called The Hate Poems.
And are you like planning at all to do like an audio book of this? I wanted to ask you, because your readings are really, really, I love hearing your readings. And I think a lot of this too is so meant to be read aloud. There's a good rhythm to it, and like there's
I don't know how I feel about audiobooks, to be honest. I think doing stuff like, John Paul that has this sci-fi podcast where people write stories and narrates them, and
that's so cool.
There's music and stuff, but I don't know how I would feel about there being like an audiobook of this. I've had some requests for it, but it just seems like, I don't know. I would hate to put my own voice in the reader's head.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah.
I think that could be really distracting to people and their own imaginations when they read something kind of that could be kind of open-ended and open to interpretation like this, And
yeah.
I think that I'm being really adamant that these stories are fiction, and so I don't want to be the one reading them necessarily to the reader as if they happen to me.
I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also like, if you intended them to be read, you would have written them to be audiobook or something, like have the end intention to do it. I just enjoy reading parts aloud to my girlfriend, and I can't wait to see.
Oh yeah, but see,
go ahead.
But see, no, I mean that's what books are for. They're to be read out loud. But I think if I was going to make an audiobook, I think the object is to get people to read, and I think making an audiobook would kind of take that away too,
Yeah, that's true.
But that's I guess there's something to be said for books on tape for long drives and stuff.
Yeah, I guess, I haven't really investigated too much, but I think I would have the intention or that already decided if I was to release something. So I get
Yeah.
why you're hesitant. That makes perfect sense. Are you going to be doing a tour at all? Like a book tour, reading?
Yeah, it's probably going to be pretty sporadic. It'll probably be weekend trips here and there, like to the Bay Area and to maybe Arizona and stuff like that. But I think I'm really going to sort of go all out once we release the Jail Weddings record later this year, and we tour. I think I'll be doing probably bookstore stops along the way, and that's probably just kill two birds with one stone.
Hell yeah, that'd be amazing. So tell me about the Jail Weddings record. How's that gearing up? That's exciting. I think
good. We're finally putting it out this year. We're self-releasing it on True Vow. We've done it before, so why not do it again?
Yeah.
It feels kind of good to kind of be in control of everything, and it's labels basically aren't going to take it's my favorite record and everyone in the band's favorite record we've done, but labels aren't really going to take a chance on a band that's been around for 10 years and haven't
even with all the acclaim and accolades, and I mean I don't and also I don't really see the purpose of labels so much anymore anyway.
Yeah, the industry just barely exists anymore. So it's why not just do it? Yeah, exactly. It's an outdated paradigm. You know. So yeah, we're all just trying to figure out what to do from here. But yeah, it has to come out this year. It has to. So I'm already looking into pressing plants and all that. So
I wanted to ask you about
we're gonna
Sirens in the Night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and just how that. Yeah. So are you like Sirens in the Night is kind of? Are you acting as a Phil Spector type producer, or is it? You know what I mean? Or is it just another side project? Or
well, I'm writing the songs,
right?
And writing the lyrics. But yeah, it's great. The girls are basically the backup. Jail Weddings backup singers are basically the mouthpieces for this. And so yeah, it's Marianne. It's Marianne who's been in Jail Weddings for a while, and then Rachel Polikoff, who just joined, and she's gonna end up being the new singer of Jail Weddings as well. So that's so yeah, I think we basically kind of started it just because the release of the album was taking so long, and our drummer Dave Clifford, he actually had a baby with his girlfriend in Germany, so he's been bouncing back and forth, and so yeah, we just wanted to take time for that to happen and just sort of start Sirens of the Night as just a way to just stay active. And I've always wanted to do a band like this where it's the girls singing and I'm just kind of writing the music. And I bought a synthesizer, an MS-20, and I'm just to do something totally different. So I'm writing all the songs on there, and I'm just kind of trying to be, my own version of Ron Mail from Sparks in the back, and making funny faces and stuff. And
no Hitler stash.
But yeah. No. But yeah, we're having a blast with it. It feels new and exciting, and I love playing a new instrument, that I'm an amateur at, because you feel like a little kid again.
Yeah, totally.
And it feels that the overall vibe of the band and the chemistry is just really, really fun, and I can't wait to just put that all back into the new Jail Weddings lineup when we gear up again. Are you guys gonna do a Sirens in the Night record? Is there things planned for? Yeah, we're gonna record on February 1st. I don't know how or when that'll come out, but what'll end up happening is when you go see Jail Weddings, it'll be like an hour-long show, and we'll have Sirens in the Night kind of open for Jail Weddings. Very cool. So it'll be a big bang for your buck. That's awesome. I can't wait to check that out, because I was keeping updated on
social media and just saw like little clips of it, and I just thought it was such a cool idea. It seemed like you were in your element.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. And so what's next after the writing? What is now that Virgins in Reverse and the Intrusion is finally out after 10 years, and it's getting, I think a great response. You have another one in the pipeline, don't you?
Yeah, and luckily this one won't take 10 years to come out.
I don't think anything will take 10 years ever again.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Yeah, I've got so I released that chapbook last year, Nothing Is Tea Here, and that'll be kind of part of this new novel I'm working on called Lies of Heaven, and it all takes place in the desert, and it's sort of another sort of careful what you wish for tale, but sort of an interesting arc of climate change. And yeah, I had no idea I would be writing a book about climate change, and it's almost its own character in a way. But yeah, I don't want to give too much away,
right.
but yeah, that's sort of realizing that there's bigger, you don't realize that there's bigger shifts happening until it comes right to your doorstep.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's hitting you hard.
Then you're the bigger shifts happening than your own dramas until it wipes out everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that said, Virgins in Reverse and the Intrusion, that's available kind of anywhere now.
It'll be. We prefer that you buy it from us at Traveling Shoes Press.
I'll link that.
You could go. Yeah, you could go. It's the website is vir.travelingshoespress.com. That's the book's own website.
Cool.
Branch of the publisher. But yeah, it'll be on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all that stuff in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, exciting. We get more money when you buy it from us.
Yeah. And the Jail Weddings record sometime this year later. Sirens in the Night.
Yeah, summer. We're looking at summertime. Cool. And yeah, the Sirens of the Night record in some way, shape, or form as well.
Oh, I wanted to ask you real quick before we go. In the acknowledgments, you thank Zach Wentz. Is that Zach Wentz from Kill Me Tomorrow?
Oh yeah.
That's amazing. He was a huge influence on me in high school. I used to write him all the time. Went and saw Kill Me Tomorrow play. The Garbage Man and the Prostitute was a big book for me when I was younger. Yeah, God, I regret never getting a copy of that. But yeah, Zach's a genius, man. I've known him since the Starvations days. We did a tour together and kind of cut our teeth. That's so cool.
Together, yeah. And but yeah, he was one of the first people that I sent The Intrusion to, and he was real. He's all, this is great, but it needs a lot of work. You know what I mean? Then I thanked him for being so honest with me, and just that's kind of how I knew we were. One of the ways I knew we were no bullshit friends, Yeah, I had sent him. I mean, I was such a huge fan of Kill Me Tomorrow and the like cross medium kind of conceptual stuff he was doing, and I remember sending him demos and shit. When I was a sophomore or something in high school, and he was just that's really sweet. Yeah, he was such a cool guy. So it's so awesome to be in company or have that come full circle in a way too. So thank you so much, man, for I don't know, creating. This shit is amazing, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. Well, I really appreciate that, man. And there you have it. Finally, a major manifestation, if I may call that, or
major service and aid to a guest via this podcast. And I couldn't ask for a better result. The fact that I played any small part, let alone one that helped a friend and hero of mine get published, means the world. And it's kind of the most affirming thing ever. So that is, in a nutshell, kind of the point of all of this, isn't it? I think so. Anyways, I'll keep this short. This was one of 3, I think, interviews I've done this weekend, and it was an incredible weekend. It's super productive beginning to 2019. So please look out for interviews with Derek Hunter of Love Chaos, who's coming up next. And then after that, the one, the only, Mitch motherfucking Horowitz is on the PRAGMAGICK podcast, and that should be out sometime next week. I also recorded an introduction and some updates about this podcast, but especially about the art collective behind this podcast, We the Hallowed. It is available on the stream or on the PRAGMAGICK channel, and I believe it is called What We Woo is Spooky. And really, it's just a rundown of the projects this art collective has been a part of, where it wants to go, and the intentions tied to it. As always, you can support the show or donate to the art collective via patreon.com/wethehallowed. There's plenty of tiers and a lot of great rewards for doing so. I'm going to leave it at that. I love you all. Haunt on.